I'm here to speak in support of PCNJ C3. This is a very simple amendment just to remove the capital funding authorization of $76 million from the 2018 budget for the jail project. I'm concerned that now is not the right time to move this $76 million for a few reasons. And really they're rooted in the language and the inspiration and the recommendations set forth in Resolution 556, which many of you worked hard on. And I think it's because we know what this funding for this jail consolidation project will do. And we know that it will be a lot of money to lock up disproportionately people of color, people with mental health issues, people who are low income and cannot afford money bail, people who are homeless and cycle in and out of jail because of crimes related to their conditions of homelessness and their health issues. We know what this won't do. We know that it's not going to create one supportive housing unit for the 142 people who are homeless on any given night in the Dane County Jail. We know it's not going to support a family or a person re-entering the community after jail. We know it's not going to provide a therapist to somebody who's been waiting for several weeks to get the appointment, the support that they need to stabilize their health condition. We have serious inequities in this community that we're very well aware of. And incarceration, we know, doesn't reduce recidivism. We know that you're more likely to commit, to be incarcerated again if you get incarcerated. It's an ineffective solution. We know it's not a long-term solution. We know it's a very expensive solution. It's more expensive than providing housing for people in the community. The reason, that we're at this point in our process, our dialogue, because we have decades, centuries of policies that create a structurally racist system, and we, it's hard for us to fix all of that in a short period of time. I understand that, and it's complicated, and it's really difficult, especially when your federal government and your state government are always seem to be working against you. But if we thought about the sort of future that I want for my kids and that I think you want for our community, did I say kids? I just have one kid, but I hope to have more. But it's one where we need to think differently about this sort of resource imbalance. If we had $76 million to invest in permanent, real solutions, in the community-based solutions, how would that address our chronic homelessness problem? I have an amendment for 190 units of housing for the chronically homeless, homeless veterans, and homeless youth 18 to 24. Youth who might, be using the community restorative court program if they ever get referred. And that's a solution, I think, that makes good on our prior promises to recognize housing as a human right. So I'm proposing alternatives that include housing the chronically homeless in our community and case management to support those people in housing. This amendment that Finance will see will be $25 million for 190 units, $780,000 for case management. And that sounds like a lot, right? That sounds like a whole lot. But it's really modest when you think about the resources we're thinking about spending in this criminal justice system. And it's modest when you think about the fact that over the last 15 years, Human Services Department revenue in the amount of $66 million has gone back into the general fund to go to, you know, overtime in the public safety budget for those lines that are being overrun. So I'm asking you to rethink this because I think that we are committed to equity. And when we think about who was consulted in reviewing this proposal, have we really vetted the proposal that we first received a report on in June with all the folks who were involved in that community work group process? Have they had a chance to weigh in to see if what they came forward with in their recommendations and what we asked for in Resolution 556 are really integrated into the proposal that's on the table, to the proposal that is being advocated for in the amount of $76 million in unknown operating costs in the future? I think that when we think about who was at the table, we see it in the credits of the Mead and Hunt report. And it's the Dane County Sheriff's Office, it's the County Executive's Office, and it's some county staff. It's not community people, it's not people directly impacted, the people who are likely potentially to be incarcerated or have their families incarcerated because of the systems of inequality that are perpetuated. If we want to make good on our commitments under the equity resolution, working its way through the county board process right now about who benefits, who's burdened, who does not have a voice at the table, and how can we mitigate unintended consequences? Like, this is a really big deal. $76 million is a really big deal. We spent a lot of time on those work groups. We need to think about whether or not those voices have had a chance to talk about alternatives, to see whether their priorities were implemented into this jail project. I'm very pleased to hear that we're gaining some traction for a crisis restoration center. I have a capital amendment for it. There's funding and language about a study. That is a huge diversion potential. A huge diversion potential that directly impacts what the jail design would look like, how much funding might be necessary, how many people who don't need to be in there we can keep out. So I'm asking you, and I'm glad that people are offering alternatives, to think really hard about this. And think if now is the right time. Think if all the voices have been heard. Think if this is even going to work. Think about if we do this, what our future looks like in 25 years for our children, for our community. Please, do we want our legacy to be a fancy jail where we continue to perpetuate disparities? I don't think we do.